the top stories, beacon lighting ceremony held to commemorate Queen's Platinum Jubilee. St. Lucia charity organization concerned about sugar shortage, and U.S. President Biden calls for stronger limits on the sale of assault-style weapons. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Friday, the 3rd of June, 2022. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, government officials and specially invited guests were among those in attendance at Government House on Thursday night for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee beacon lighting ceremony. The ceremony was one of several activities planned to mark the Queen's 70th anniversary as monarch. At exactly 9:45 p.m., Governor General, His Excellency Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, GCMG CVO QCJP LLD, lit the beacon in sync with other ceremonies around the globe. The beacon lighting ceremony took place across the UK and in all Commonwealth member countries. In a statement, the Governor General was quoted as saying, "A 70th anniversary is indeed a milestone, but this Platinum Jubilee is a unique occasion. Others, though few in number, have reached their Diamond Jubilee, but a Platinum Jubilee signifies the longest in history." Among those in attendance were Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, the Attorney General, Honorable Vincent Byron, and Resident Ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan, Michael Lin. The government is leading a multi-sectoral response to help 147 employees of Cajola Cristada who will become redundant following the upcoming closure of the manufacturing plant. During the Federal Cabinet's press conference on Wednesday, Minister of Labor, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, said a transition team was established by the Department of Labor to manage the process of retooling, retraining, and reassigning interested workers who will be displaced by the plant's closure. She added that workers who qualify for severance payments from the government were assured that all statutes will be handled properly as per the provisions of the Protection of Employment Act. Additionally, the management of Cajola Cristada has guaranteed that they will also make a gratuitous payment to their workers. Minister Phipps thanked the leadership of the manufacturing plant for this guarantee that will greatly benefit the affected employees. Exit interviews with workers of Cajola Cristada will begin this week. Premier, the Honorable Mark Brantley, is urging members of the public to exercise caution in light of the recent uptick in COVID-19 cases on the island. Despite Nevis recording more than 40 cases over the past few weeks, the Premier assured that health officials are monitoring the situation. He said the majority of these positive cases were traced to a mass event held on the island recently. Most of those testing positive reported mild to no symptoms. However, one individual had to be hospitalized. The Premier also informed that several members of staff at the Alexandra Hospital had tested positive, creating a shortage of staff at the island's main health facility. We now move to news on the regional scene. A shortage of sugar on the island of St. Lucia has prompted the CEO of Feed the Poor Ministry, Gasper Henry, to appeal to authorities to remedy the situation. More in this DBS News report.
Sugar on local supermarket shelves appear to be an increasingly rare sight. There is no brown sugar, and now minimal quantities of white sugar, leaving grocery stores to ration the amount of sugar that can be sold to a customer. CEO of Feed the Poor Ministry, Gasper Henry, says the shortage of sugar has a direct and detrimental impact on the poor and marginalized of society.
Of late, the no sugar affair have been affecting me, and it is a matter of concern. Not looking to cast any blame, but the relevant authorities, we would like them to work on that expeditiously to bring some kind of resolution to the situation. Well, it is a basic commodity. We can't run from that. That's why I think I have to give the Prime Minister a little kudos for trying to implement a system that could cut down on the price of the food for poor people. But we need the basic commodities, and it is kind of what the Mali way, depend on, I mean, on a morning, you need a cup of tea, to put in your stomach first thing in the morning. So it is a plea I can make to the, a reasonable plea that we could make to the authorities to try to work on that. We need sugar in the country,
Henry also laments the hike in the price of goods on supermarket shelves. Instead, he encourages St. Lucians to be mindful of their consumption habits.
It is no secret, that food items has gone up astronomically, and it is a situation that has been taking place around the world, and St. Lucia is part of the world, and that's why I alluded to the measures that the government trying to put in place to see how best they can curb, on try and cut down on the prices of the food items, and it has affected many households, and that's why we had to try our best to see how we can save. Although it is difficult, but we must try to make things stretch. For example, my wife, when she buy a dishwashing liquid and her washing liquid, she try to use as much water to try to make it stretch. We must be, innovative in trying to see how best, you buy some chicken, get your little Ziploc. And if it's one chicken, you could, one drumstick, you could afford, make it work, We had to try to use, measures in place to ensure that we can make what we have stretch.
The CEO encourages the St. Lucian public to turn to local alternatives to alleviate hardships brought on by the rising tide of inflation. For the DBS News World, I am Jason Darius.
The Trinidad and Tobago government will have no choice but to borrow the necessary funds to finance back pay for public servants. More in this TTT News report.
Questioned on the ongoing wage negotiations and the back pay between the unions and the chief personnel officer during Thursday's post-cabinet media briefing, Finance Minister Colm Imbert stressed that the country is currently running on a deficit budget. He said the 2% offer is an initial offer.
Again, I want to stress that point. We are running a deficit budget. We have been running a deficit budget in Trinidad and Tobago now for the last, since 2009, as far as I can recall. So if you take all those years together, 12, 13 years, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has been running a deficit budget since the crash, the global financial crisis of 2007, 2008.
He said negotiations are continuing. The chief personnel officer is reconvening meetings with the various unions this month, starting with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Social and Welfare Association on June 10th.
So we've been borrowing, the country, the government of this country, from 2009 to now, has been borrowing money to make up the difference between expenditure and income. And therefore, any back pay that comes out of this settlement, we will have to borrow that because we are already running a budget deficit this year.
We now move to news on the international scene. U.S. President Joe Biden has appealed to Congress to restore limits on the sale of assault-style weapons and raise the minimum age to buy guns. His speech on stricter gun laws followed recent mass shootings. Al Jazeera's Mike Hanna report.
In the past 3 weeks, more than 70 people have been killed in mass shootings. The most recent at a medical center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where 4 people were murdered by a man said to be a disgruntled patient. Police say the gunman then killed himself. He'd bought one of his guns just a few hours before.
We know through the help of our ATF and their gun tracing that at 2 p.m. on June the 1st, Mr. Lewis purchased a semi-automatic rifle from a local gun store.
The same weapon was used to kill 19 children and 2 teachers at a Texas elementary school last week. The same weapon used to murder 10 people at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, 10 days before that. In both cases, the alleged gunmen were just 18 years old. The Texas shooter killed at the scene. The Buffalo shooting suspect was arraigned on murder charges Thursday. In a rare primetime address to the American people, President Biden urged Congress to impose federal gun controls, suggesting a ban on automatic weapons and high-capacity magazines, raising the age at which an individual can buy a gun from 18 to 21, and removing the protections against litigation enjoyed by gun manufacturers.
They had one message for all of us: do something. Just do something. For God's sake, do something.
Some of these measures suggested by President Biden are already being debated and may well be passed in the Democrat-controlled House of Representatives. But they're likely to be blocked by Senate Republicans who were a particular target of President Biden's anger.
But my God, the fact that the majority of the Senate Republicans don't want any of these proposals even to be debated or come up for a vote, I find unconscionable. We can't fail the American people again.
A message, too, for the American people that the majority should act and turn their outrage into making the issue central to their vote. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Washington.
El Salvador has extended a state of emergency for a third month to crack down on gangs. Amnesty International says 18 people have died in police custody since the new measures began. 34,000 others have been detained. Most of the population supports the president's strategy. Al Jazeera's John Holman reports.
For El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, the ceremony to mark 3 years in office was a triumphant event. He had something to announce.
Estamos a punto de ganar la guerra contra las pandillas.
We're at the point of winning the war against the gangs. Nobody thought it was possible. That's not just the triumph of police and security forces, but the whole population.
He's referring to a 2-month-long and ongoing crackdown on the MS-13 and Barrio 18 gangs. Mass arrests and security checkpoints in the communities they control. Most of the population wholeheartedly support that. This is a land where gangs have killed, raped and extorted for decades.
Every day there are less people paying the gang's extortion. Many have lost their fear of going out or that something will happen to a loved one. For the first time, people are feeling the peace.
But there's another side to this. At least 34,000 people have been arrested under a state of emergency which has seen some civil rights suspended. And inevitably, some innocent people sucked into the prison system along with the guilty. Mothers wait en masse outside of the country's jails for news of their sons. The police admit they've been given arrest quotas to meet. Amnesty International announced in their report this Thursday that due process has been swept away.
Amnesty International has found that thousands of people are being detained without an arrest warrant. Instead, the police are making mass arrests based on unverified anonymous accusations or if people have a prison record, tattoos, or have a relative in a gang, if they've denounced police abuses or just because they live in a gang-controlled community.
Meanwhile, even as the president grapples with the gangs, another crisis looms. Bukele has gambled heavily on Bitcoin, making the cryptocurrency legal tender in the country. But that great experiment had just one mention in his speech, 2 minutes from the end, a sign of how a celebrated policy has become a millstone. So far, he's lost the country tens of millions in buying up Bitcoin before the price crashed. A $1 billion Bitcoin-backed bond that he announced with much fanfare last year has also been put on ice. It was all meant to help El Salvador pay its mounting foreign debts. Now economists worry the country will default. So even as President Bukele's supporters chanted for his re-election on Wednesday night, a moment of reckoning could be getting closer. John Holman, Al Jazeera.
And now for the weather. Current conditions are fair skies. The temperature for today is 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are a gentle breeze of 9 miles per hour from a northeasterly direction. Seas are moderate with waves of 3 to 4 feet. The weather forecast in St. Kitts and Nevis for today and tonight will be partly cloudy with a 20% or slight chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 6:41 p.m., sunrise tomorrow at 5:36 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.